Let's let's start with a little confession today. We all have that closet.
Oh, yeah. The doom closet.
Exactly. You know the exact one I'm talking about. Maybe it's in your spare room or tucked away down the hall somewhere.
The one you just kind of shove things into when company comes over.
Yes. It's the one currently hiding like a massive bread maker you used exactly once during the 2020 sourdough craze.
Right. Next to the three incredibly scratchy sweaters from your aunt.
Oh, and a heavy cardboard box overflowing with tangled cords for electronics you haven't even owned since, the early 2000s.
You don't even know what they plug into anymore.
You don't. But you keep the door firmly shut, hoping that if you just ignore it long enough, the clutter will somehow magically compost itself into thin air.
It is such a universal human experience to hoard these items. We hold on to the physical clutter because of the hypothetical what if.
Right, like what if I need this weird adapter cable to rescue data off a hard drive from 2008?
Exactly. Or what if I suddenly have this overwhelming urge to bake an artisanal loaf of bread on a random Tuesday? We keep the items as this bizarre form of emotional insurance against future scenarios that, let's be honest, almost never happen.
They'd never happen. But welcome back, because today we are not talking about your hallway clutter. Welcome to part 4 of our 11-part cinematic series exploring each chapter of Breeze Dong's remarkable book, A Soulful Transition, Finding Heart-Led Career in the Age of AI.
It's such a great chapter.
It really is. Today, we are opening the door to a much scarier closet. We're diving into the closet inside your professional psyche.
Yeah, it's a brilliant and, frankly, slightly terrifying metaphor for how we manage our modern careers. We treat our professional identities exactly like that spare bedroom closet.
We really do.
We just shove every minor proficiency, every outdated certificate, and every tangential project into our resumes just in case.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it's funny on the surface, but deeply terrifying when you realize how much energy we actually waste doing this.
Oh, so much energy.
We hold on to these random skills purely because we're afraid. We think, well, if the economy crashes or my industry pivots, I might need to prove I'm proficient in basic Java.
Or that you can run a decent pivot table in Excel.
Right. We keep them just to avoid becoming unemployable.
And that fear is entirely rational when you look at the historical context of work over the last 50 years. For decades, the absolute safest career bet you could make was to be the ultimate utility player.
The classic jack of all trades.
Exactly. You accumulated diverse skills, some project management, a little basic coding, maybe a splash of graphic design, some budget analysis. You did it specifically to build an impenetrable fortress around your employability.
Because the logic was simple, right? Make yourself useful in as many rooms as possible, and you'll never be fired.
That was the promise. You become the person who raises their hand in every meeting and says,
"Oh, I don't know how to do that, but I can totally figure it out over the weekend."
yes. And for a long time, the corporate world rewarded that person handsomely. But the text in Chapter 4 makes a staggering argument here. This hoarding strategy, this instinct to be sort of good at everything, is no longer a safety net.
It's actually a trap, isn't it?
A lethal career trap. And the mechanism behind this trap is what the author calls the disappearing middle.
The disappearing middle. This feels like the core anxiety of literally everyone navigating the job market right now, whether they realize it or not. Let's break down why that middle is vanishing.
To understand the vanishing middle, we have to look at what generative AI actually does best. Because there is a massive misconception that AI is this omniscient oracle that produces top-tier, paradigm-shifting genius in every single output.
Which it definitely doesn't.
It doesn't. What it actually produces, with terrifying speed, is the average. Generative AI is sort of good at almost everything.
I can write an average piece of code.
Right. It can draft a perfectly acceptable professional email. It can spin up a middle-of-the-road marketing strategy in about 10 seconds. And it does all of this for, what, $20 a month?
And it never sleeps. It never has to leave work early to pick up its kids from soccer practice.
No sick days.
Right. It doesn't get a migraine on a Wednesday afternoon.
So consider the implication there for you. If your long-term career strategy is to be a generalist, someone who is broadly competent at many things, but deeply passionate or exceptional at none of them, you are voluntarily positioning yourself in the middle.
You're stepping into the ring with a machine.
You are directly competing with a large language model.
It's like trying to outcalculate a calculator by doing long division in your head just to prove your worth. Like, why are we trying to outvolume an algorithm? You're just going to lose.
You can't win that race.
A basic AI can process a billion data points and synthesize a report in the time it takes a human being just to find the unmute button on a Zoom call.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this really exposes the fundamental flaw of the traditional company man logic.
How so?
Well, that old industrial era logic dictates that more is always better. It tells you to keep your project management certification active on your LinkedIn, even if looking at a Gantt chart makes you want to weep.
Just in case you need a fallback.
Exactly. It tells you to volunteer for the office holiday party committee just to show you're a team player. It tells you to spend your weekends learning how to use TikTok for B2B sales just because your niece says it's the future.
It's the logic of accumulation. It's this deeply held belief that whoever dies with the most bullet points on their resume wins.
And the book points out that this logic works incredibly well if you are a squirrel preparing for a harsh winter.
Right. A squirrel doesn't care about the quality of the nuts.
No, it just gathers as much volume as it can to survive.
Yeah.
But this accumulation strategy works terribly for a complex human being seeking meaning, purpose, and longevity in an AI-dominated world. The market is increasingly desperate for specificity and deep human insight.
Not a diluted, exhausted version of you trying to be everything to everyone.
Precisely.
But, okay, if being a generalist is essentially career suicide now, the panic response for most people is to just learn more specialized skills, right? To work even harder. But you're saying the actual survival tactic introduced in this chapter is the exact opposite.
It is the exact opposite.
It's doing less.
This is where we encounter the concept of wise energy. The text describes wise energy as a gentle yet rigorous discipline. It's the daily practice of directing your focus only toward what is nourishing and uniquely human.
While having the courage to actively let go of the tasks that cause you to drag your feet.
Exactly. It's about knowing when to push, but more importantly, developing the wisdom to know when to stop.
And that requires a massive psychological shift. The book quotes Greg McKeown, the author of Essentialism, who says, "You cannot overestimate the unimportance of practically everything."
That is such a powerful quote.
I love that line. It just stops you dead in your tracks.
It forces you to confront the reality of trade-offs, which humans hate doing. We all want to believe we can have it all. We want to be the visionary strategist in the boardroom, the flawless executor of the daily tasks, the beloved culture champion of the office.
And the heroic person who knows how to fix the paper jam in the printer on floor 3.
Right. But every single time you say yes to a skill you actually hate using,
Yep.
you are implicitly saying no to a skill you love. You are spending your finite daily battery on resistance.
But wait, let's look at the cultural messaging we've all internalized.
Yeah.
Aren't we taught from day one that valuable work must be inherently hard?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, we are culturally conditioned by the Protestant work ethic to believe that if we aren't suffering, when they're grinding it out and pulling late hours, we aren't really delivering value.
We treat our exhaustion like a badge of honor.
People practically compete in the break room to see who slept less. So this idea of wise energy, of focusing only on what's nourishing to the traditional company man brain, doesn't that feel almost irresponsible, like you're getting away with something?
Oh, it absolutely triggers that internal alarm system. We deeply conflate struggle with value. If a project was miserable to complete, we assume the output must be highly valuable.
Exactly.
But the author introduces a powerful mental model here called inversion to dismantle that bias. Instead of asking the default question, which is, how can I push harder and suffer more to get this result? Inversion asks you to completely flip the problem.
Okay, so what do you ask instead?
It asks, what if this were easy? What if I simply let go of the struggle and allowed the process to be light?
What if it were easy? I mean, that almost feels like a taboo question to ask in most corporate spaces.
Yeah.
Your manager would probably look at you like you had two heads.
They might, yeah. But asking that question is the key to finding your effortless state, which the text aligns with the psychological concept of flow.
Right, flow.
Flow is that rare state where time just evaporates. You don't have to force your focus. The work itself generates momentum and pulls you in. And the most defining characteristic of this state, you finish the task with more energy than you started with?
Oh, wow. That is the ultimate indicator of your zone of genius.
It is.
Which is the total opposite of what the book calls the robot work.
Oh, robot work is everything that actively depletes your cognitive reserves.
Yeah.
It's the tasks where you literally have to drag yourself to the keyboard, your shoulders are tense, and you're checking the clock every 10 minutes hoping it's time for lunch.
We've all been there.
Right. And in the past, we tolerated the robot work. We hung out there for years because it paid the bills and it proved to our bosses that we were hard workers. But here is the critical shift the author wants us to understand.
Yeah.
In the age of AI, hanging out in the robot work is the danger zone.
Because that is the exact territory the algorithm is programmed to conquer.
Precisely. When you are doing work that drains you, your performance degrades. You are slow, you are resentful, you are highly prone to errors because your brain is subconsciously trying to escape the task.
And most importantly, you are easily, cleanly replaceable by a script that can do it instantly without the resentment or the errors.
Exactly. So the theoretical goal is clear. Do more flow, do less robot work.
But how do we actually separate them?
Yeah.
Because for most of us, the flow and the robot work are blended together into a messy 40-hour week. You don't just get to pick and choose what your boss assigns you.
True.
This brings us to what might be the most actionable part of the chapter, the Spark Joy Career Audit.
I love this part. We're essentially taking Marie Kondo's famous philosophy of tidying up a physical home and applying it rigorously to your professional identity.
Yes. Okay, to everyone listening right now, I want you to visualize this exercise.
Yeah.
Imagine you are standing in front of your LinkedIn profile or your master resume.
Okay.
We are going to look at every single bullet point, every endorsed skill, every project you've managed, and we're going to sort them into 3 distinct piles based on whether they spark that state of flow.
Right. So pile number 1 is your zone of genius. This is the keep and polish pile. These are the specific skills that make you feel like the most alive, engaged version of yourself.
The litmus test the book offers here is brilliant. If you had to do this activity all day, every day, would you be happy? Do colleagues naturally gravitate toward you for advice on this specific thing, even if it's nowhere in your official job description?
And crucially, you have to ask, is this something an AI inherently struggles to do well?
Right.
In pile 1, we are looking for high context, high empathy, high creativity skills, things that require deeply human warmth and intuition.
Like mentoring a junior staff member through a crisis of confidence.
Yes. Or synthesizing completely disparate, messy ideas from 3 different departments into a new, unified strategy. We're talking about deep listening and navigating complex interpersonal conflicts. This is your gold. This is the foundation you build your future around.
Then we move to pile 2, which is hilariously but accurately called the robot work, or the AI trash can.
The AI trash can.
Yeah, these are the skills you're actually good at, but you absolutely hate doing them. And this seems like the sneakiest trap.
It is often the hardest pile for professionals to accurately identify because they confuse competence with their true calling. Let's say you are naturally incredibly detail-oriented. Over the years, you've become excellent at fixing broken, convoluted financial spreadsheets.
Or maybe you're great at writing dry, massive technical documentation manuals.
Right. You do it well, but it leaves you feeling hollowed out and exhausted.
And because you do it well, you fall into what the book explores as collaborative overload. You essentially become a victim of your own competence.
Let's paint a picture of how this mechanism actually works.
Okay, so you fix a spreadsheet perfectly once. People notice. Suddenly, every time anyone in a 5-desk radius has a broken formula, they slack you for a quick favor.
A quick favor.
A quick favor, right? Before you know it, you're spending 40% of your week managing other people's friction. You become the spreadsheet person, which means you don't have the time or energy to do the high-level strategic work that actually gets you promoted.
You become trapped by your own reliability. You are literally too useful in the weeds to be allowed to grow. But the action for the second pile isn't just to stubbornly delete the skills and refuse to help your team.
Right. You can't just say no to everything.
No, the action is to deliberately delegate them to the machines. The author encourages us to entirely reframe how we view generative AI. It is not the sci-fi enemy coming to steal your livelihood. It is the eager, tireless intern waiting for your trash.
So if you hate writing weekly meeting summaries, that is Gemini's job now. Hate checking thousands of lines of code for minor syntax bugs. Hand it straight to ChatGPT.
Exactly. Hate formatting slide decks so the margins align perfectly. Microsoft Copilot has it covered. You have to actively build the habit of offloading.
Which leaves us with the final pile, pile 3, administrative fodder.
Yes.
This differs from pile 2 because it's not even skilled work you hate. It's just the rote mechanical stuff. The endless email scheduling ping pong, the basic data entry, the moving of files from one folder to another.
And the action here is to automate it completely. Get it off your plate using dedicated software. The text uses a great visual here. You cannot possibly reach for the next rung on the ladder if both of your hands are full of heavy luggage.
Okay, I have to step in and play devil's advocate here because I know exactly what the listener's thinking.
Go for it.
This sounds like an absolute dream, but if I dump 40% of my job, the spreadsheets, the meeting summaries, the scheduling, the documentation into the AI trash can, doesn't that make me obsolete? Am I cheating my employer?
That's a very common fear.
Right, like if I'm physically doing half the manual work I used to do, why on earth would they keep paying my salary?
What's fascinating here is that the paradox of the modern economy proves the exact opposite is true. It feels terrifying, like you are making yourself obsolete, but by relinquishing the mechanical work, you are actually making yourself irreplaceable.
Wait, how does doing less make you irreplaceable? Walk me through that logic.
Because if you cling to the robot work to justify your paycheck, if you say, look how many hours I spent formatting this report, you are voluntarily entering a race against a machine that is getting exponentially faster and cheaper by the second. You cannot win a volume race against silicon.
That makes sense.
However, by releasing the rote tasks to the AI, you create necessary white space. You reclaim the cognitive bandwidth to actually live in your zone of genius. You trade volume for value. You stop being the exhausted person who formats the slides, and you become the insightful person who provides the strategic vision that the slides are actually about. Employers pay a premium for vision. They pay minimum wage for formatting.
So identifying what to dump is just the diagnostic phase. But how do you actually execute this without destroying your career? If I have a mortgage, I can't exactly walk into my boss's office on a Tuesday and say, hey, I only do deep listening now. Please direct all spreadsheets to my intern, ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's a great way to get fired. The practical transition is where things get delicate and where most people abandon the process. To prevent that panic, the book introduces two concrete strategies. The first is the 90% rule.
Okay.
When you are evaluating a new opportunity, a project request, or deciding whether to keep a skill on your resume, you score it from 0 to 100 based on how much flow it brings you. If it's a 90 or above, it's an enthusiastic yes. If it's below a 90, it's a no.
And the most important caveat to this rule is that there is no 75.
The 75s are the enemy of a soulful career. The 75s are the projects that are just fine. They are the skills you are okay at.
They are the endless bi-weekly sync meetings that absolutely could have been a 3-sentence email.
Yes. Those 75s are dangerous because they aren't bad enough to make you quit, but they clog up your entire nervous system and take up the space where a 95 could live.
But again, coming back to the mortgage problem, if my current job description is literally built on my 75s, how do I pivot without losing my income?
That is where the sunset strategy comes into play. The author fully acknowledges the reality of financial obligations. You cannot just delete half your skills today and hope the universe pays your rent. So the sunset strategy is about gradually shifting your signal. You don't delete the skill from your brain today, but you strategically stop marketing it.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
I love the storefront analogy the book uses to explain this. Think of your professional identity as the display window of a retail storefront.
Okay.
Right now, because you've been hoarding, your window is cluttered with neon signs. It says, I do Python, and B2B sales, and HR conflict resolution, and graphic design. I also make a great cup of coffee.
Which creates an incredibly noisy signal. A customer or an employer walking by has no idea what your actual specialty is.
It's like a famous Italian restaurant deciding to take a mediocre burger off their menu. If a regular customer comes in and begs for the burger they've ordered for years, sure, the head chef might still know how to grill it in the back kitchen to keep a good customer happy during the transition. Right. But you aren't advertising the burger in the front window anymore. You take it off the menu so new customers start ordering your incredible signature lasagna.
That is a perfect expansion of the metaphor. You slowly, deliberately move the robot work items to the back of your professional store. When a colleague asks if you can do that rote task, you don't throw a tantrum, but you shift the conversation.
Right, you pivot.
You say, I can help with this transitionally, but my primary focus right now is on this higher level strategy. Have we considered using an AI tool to handle that first draft going forward?
I like that.
You start cutting through the noise. You clearly signal what your specific genius is, which organically attracts opportunities that value that genius, rather than just valuing your general availability to do grunt work.
And to tie a bow on why this is so critical, the text makes this beautiful comparison to tuning a musical instrument. If the string on a violin is too loose, it won't play a note. That's laziness. But if the string is wound too tight, it will snap under the pressure. That's anxiety.
And our modern careers have been strung way too tight for way too long.
We've been straining to maintain all these generalist skills that don't even belong to us, terrified that if we drop one, we'll be useless.
By conducting this career audit, by actively sunsetting the 75s, you loosen the tension. You stop fighting your own biological and psychological nature. And paradoxically, you actually get more high-value work done because you aren't wasting half your daily energy on resistance, dread, and constant context switching between tasks you hate.
To make this abstract strategy incredibly concrete, let's look at a deeply human story from the book. We need to talk about David.
Oh, David, yes.
We met David back in Chapter 1. He was the VP who was physically sitting in the bleachers at his daughter's basketball game. But mentally, he was miles away, entirely consumed by replaying a minor piece of critical feedback from his CEO.
Yes, David is the archetype of the classic company man who is carrying the generalized anxiety of his entire department on his shoulders. A few months after that basketball game, David reaches a breaking point and attends a weekend retreat hosted by the author to try and figure out what went wrong with his so-called perfect career.
The book sets this scene so vividly, you can almost feel the temperature drop. It's a cool evening in the mountains. The air smells faintly of pine needles and wood smoke. The attendees are sitting around a crackling fire on wooden benches wrapped in heavy blankets.
It's the kind of raw, quiet environment that strips away all your corporate armor. You can't hide behind a PowerPoint deck out there.
No, you can't. And in that quiet, stripped-down space, David makes a profound admission to the group. He looks at the fire and says, "I fix everything, just not myself."
Wow.
It hits so hard because it's so true for many of us.
It's an incredibly vulnerable realization. His resume was a masterpiece of accumulated, highly paid competencies. Complex process optimization, global vendor management, granular budgeting, crisis response. But as he listed these impressive skills by the fire, he admitted, none of these feel like me anymore. He was utterly exhausted by the weight of his own too-full closet.
So how did the author help him figure out what to throw out and what to keep? Because they didn't use a personality quiz or a spreadsheet. They used his body.
Which raises an important question about how deeply disconnected modern knowledge workers are from their own physical intuition. The next morning, the author simply started talking to David about his daily work routine, and she paid strict attention to his somatic, physical reactions.
His body's response.
Exactly. When they talked about budgeting, a skill he was famous for in his company, David's chest literally tightened. When they discussed vendor negotiations, he developed a sharp tightness behind his left shoulder blade. Crisis management felt like a dull, throbbing drumbeat of pressure at his temples.
I want you to pause and think about this right now as you're listening. Maybe you're gripping your steering wheel tight right now, or your jaw is clenched just thinking about your inbox. It's wild to me how our bodies literally manifest career misalignment.
Your nervous system knows.
It knows exactly what your zone of genius is and what your robot work is long before your logical brain is willing to accept it.
Yeah.
Because when David talked about mentoring his team, the physical reaction was totally different.
Completely different. The tension melted, his eyes brightened, his posture opened up, his spine straightened. He described the act of mentoring as feeling like a warmth in his stomach. It felt like pure possibility.
So mentoring, team coaching, and storytelling became his navigational stars. Those went straight into pile one.
And the rest. The budgeting, the vendor management that caused the shoulder pain, he marked them for the sunset strategy. He realized he didn't need to be the vendor guy anymore to be valuable.
Yeah.
He could hire a specialist or implement software for that.
Yeah.
He was meant to be the people guy. And it started with small, terrifying behavioral changes.
Like what?
Well, in the next executive meeting, when the CFO asked for volunteers to audit the new expense systems, David physically forced himself to keep his hands on the table. He learned to just let the agonizing, awkward silence sit in the room until someone else volunteered.
Oh, that silence is so hard. But the most emotional part of his arc is when he actually goes onto his LinkedIn profile later that weekend at the retreat to remove those old skills.
Right.
He didn't just aggressively hit the backspace key in anger. He did it with his quiet, profound reverence. As he deleted vendor management, he murmured to the screen, "Thank you and goodbye."
That moment beautifully highlights that this editing process isn't just a clinical, cold career optimization move. There is a genuine, necessary grief involved in letting go of the professional identities and the armor that kept you safe and employed for decades.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, grief is incredible. Weightless liberation.
Taking direct inspiration from David's fireside realization, the chapter ends with an immediate symbolic action for the reader. And we want to pass this directly to you, the listener, to do today. It is called the resume funeral.
It is a surprisingly powerful psychological exercise. Here's how you do it. You print out a physical copy of your current resume, or you open your LinkedIn profile on a large screen. You take a red pen, or you hover your cursor over the delete button, and you actively identify 3 specific skills that you are fully competent at, but that completely drain your energy and tighten your chest.
Think about what those are for you. Maybe it's writing complex SQL queries. Maybe it's corporate event planning. Maybe it's writing SEO copywriting. You take that red pen and you cross them out. And right next to that crossed out skill, you explicitly write the AI or software handoff.
You literally write it down.
You literally write. SQL queries go to ChatGPT. Calendar scheduling goes to an AI tool like Motion or Reclaim.
And as you strike a line through them, you say the words out loud, just like David did. Thank you. You served me well. You kept me safe. But I am handing you over now.
When you look at your resume after doing this, you are going to see blank space. And your very first deeply conditioned instinct might be panic. You might look at the gaps and think, oh no, it looks empty. I have fewer bullet points. I look less valuable to the market.
Yeah.
But you have to remind yourself of the core lesson of Chapter 4.
White space is not emptiness.
Right.
White space is room. It is the necessary fertile room for your future to breathe. By crossing out the rote tasks, you aren't losing your value. You are simply making the structural space for new, deeply human skills to grow. You are making space for the person you are actually becoming.
Which brings us right back to that overstuffed spare room closet we talked about at the very beginning of the show. As long as that closet is stuffed to the absolute ceiling with old, scratchy sweaters and useless tangled cords, you can't put anything new, beautiful, or useful inside it.
You have to make room.
You have to be brave enough to haul the heavy trash bags out to the curb first. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Chapter 4, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over on your own as you go about the rest of your day. If you successfully fired yourself from all the robot work you currently do, the exhausting tasks you only hold on to just because you happen to be good at them, what kind of human would you actually have the time, the bandwidth, and the energy to become tomorrow? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time as we crack open Chapter 5.